Hi, my name is Bill Monroe of Project Portfolio Excellence Incorporated, and this is part 3 of the How Quality Software Happens video series entitled Project Request and Fulfillment Planning. In this video, you're going to learn about the methodology of Project Portfolio Excellence. As with every Project Portfolio Excellence presentation, we start off by reiterating the number one truth of Project Portfolio Excellence, and that is that the causes of project failure are easy to diagnose and simple to understand. The objective of Project Portfolio Excellence is to develop such a detailed understanding of the causes of project failure that we'll be able to avoid projects in the future that display those characteristics. As I mentioned before, Project Request and Fulfillment Planning is the methodology of Project Portfolio Excellence. Now let me give you a little bit of a background as to how Project Request and Fulfillment Planning was developed. In the world of manufacturing, there's a process called Sales and Operations Planning. The purpose of Sales and Operations Planning is to balance sales, or demand, with operations, or capacity, resources, whatever you want to call it. The goal of Sales and Operations Planning is to build an operational plan for the future that will allow us to fulfill the demand that we've accepted and to understand the resources and capacity that will be needed to fulfill that demand. Project Request and Fulfillment Planning has been modeled on Sales and Operations Planning. The two main differences are in how we define demand and capacity, and we'll get into detail on that in just a minute. Project Request and Fulfillment Planning is driven by strategic planning and business planning. Strategic and business planning are where the organization sets long and medium-term direction and goals. The results of the strategic planning and business planning activities should be what drives the demand that we have for new projects. When we hear people talk about a lack of alignment between business and IT, what they're really describing is a disconnect between strategic and business planning and portfolio initiatives. The other half of the balancing process has to do with capacity. After we've accumulated and aggregated all of our sources of demand, we need to compare that to the amount of capacity that we have available to apply to that demand. After we've balanced demand and capacity, then we can determine how much project work we can take on, and then we can apply our detailed management processes of project management, resource management, and so on. But the core components of Project Request and Fulfillment Planning are shown here, outlined in the box. That's what we're going to concentrate on for the rest of this presentation. We said earlier that our demand should be driven by higher level planning processes, but there are other sources of demand as well. And you can see on the slide that we've broken our demand down into two classifications: continuous demand and intermittent demand. In the continuous demand classification, the main ones we think about normally are operations and maintenance work that happen on a daily basis. In Project Request and Fulfillment Planning, we classify quality and improvement activities as part of continuous demand because that's what they should be. Unfortunately, many companies only apply resources in these areas when something blows up. The last category that we have in continuous demand is rework, and by rework we mean fixing project deliverables that didn't meet original specifications or requirements. We might be tempted to think of rework as being associated with particular projects, but the fact of the matter is there is so much rework going on all the time because of our poor ability to execute with projects, we should be considering it to be a continuous source of demand for resources until we develop better capabilities. Intermittent demand is where our project demand falls, but there are other sources of intermittent demand as well. For example, if you work in an industry where governmental mandates or regulatory requirements occur on a regular basis, you need to plan for those activities so that you can support them when necessary. You might also consider planning for a certain percentage of your resources to be devoted to fighting fires. Many times when schedules are missed, it's because critical resources had to devote time to addressing the crisis of the day. The thing to keep in mind as you're analyzing all of your sources of demand is that on an ongoing basis, every time unplanned work crops up that has to be fulfilled, the resources and capacity needed to do that work have to come from somewhere. And if those resources have to be pulled from planned activities such as project work, then the plans you had for those projects are going to be thrown into disarray. We said earlier that once we've aggregated all of our sources of demand, we have to analyze our capacity to meet that demand. You can see on the slide that we break our capacity down according to the three groups of the project triad: business professionals, technology professionals, and senior managers. In other presentations, we've talked about the critical role that business professionals play in the project process. They're the ones who understand how daily work is performed today. And so when new functionality is requested or proposed, they need to understand how the new functionality is going to fit in with the way we do things currently. Once this analysis has been completed, business professionals need to gather and document the requirements that will take us from the current process to the future process, and then they need to create specifications so the technology professionals will know what they need to build in order to make that change happen. Once technology professionals have delivered a solution, it's back to the business professionals to do final testing to make sure that the solution that's been provided satisfies the requirements and the specifications. All of these activities take time and consume capacity, and this is in addition to the daily work that these folks are doing just to run the company. This is why we point out in Project Portfolio Excellence that the biggest shortage of capacity usually is with business professionals not having enough time to fulfill all of their responsibilities for projects. Technology professionals have their own set of responsibilities that have to be fulfilled. When the business turns over specifications and requirements to them, they have to perform an analysis and design of a solution that will fit in with the current systems and data infrastructure and cover all the bases. If anything is missed during this analysis and design activity, there's a good chance that the solution that's returned to the business will be incomplete. In addition to analysis and design, technology professionals have to build and test the solution that they're proposing. We don't usually consider the capacity availability of senior managers that much when we talk about project work, but as the sponsors of these projects, they have a very important role as well because they're the ones who set the goals and expectations for the project. They're the ones who have to justify and defend the funding and resource allocations for the project. They need to be able to support the project while it's in flight. They may need to help resolve issues that come up, and they may need to make some tough decisions concerning whether or not to continue with the project if something unforeseen crops up. All of these responsibilities add up to the fact that senior managers need to have the capacity to be engaged in the projects that they're sponsoring. The processes that you see here are used for the evaluation, selection, prioritization, and management of the projects in our portfolio. The work segmentation process has to do with demand management, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Project validation occurs after the project has gone into production. So that concludes our high-level look at project request and fulfillment planning. And remember, the number one objective of project request and fulfillment planning is to balance the demand we have, the work that needs to be accomplished, with the capacity and resources that we have to accomplish that work. These concepts of demand and capacity are so important to our project success that there are separate installments in the How Quality Software Happens series to address them individually. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions or comments about the material that's been presented here, you can submit them via email or telephone. You can also call to set up a free consultation where we'll discuss your goals and needs and whether Project Portfolio Excellence can help you get better results with your enterprise software and software-related projects. If you'd just like some more general information about Project Portfolio Excellence, you can visit the website at projectportfolioexcellence.com. Thank you.